Hey there, Riffologists, and welcome back to another video. Today we will be going over the history of the biggest of the big four of thrash metal bands, Metallica. Now, along with the history, I'll also be giving my own personal opinion on the band at the end. Let's get right into Metallica, shredding through history. The year is 1981. The setting is Los Angeles, California. 18-year-old James Hetfield and 17-year-old Lars Ulrich decided to form a band. While they were deciding a name for the band, Ulrich's friend Ron Quintana came up to him and asked him to decide between two names for his fanzine. A fanzine is a magazine usually produced by amateurs for fans of a particular performer, group, or form of entertainment. The names he was between were Metal Mania and Metallica, and Ulrich ended up telling his friend to use Metal Mania and asking to use Metallica for his band, which his friend was okay with. The band would eventually find its next two members, making the lineup James Hetfield on vocals and rhythm guitar, Lars Ulrich on drums, Dave Mustaine on lead guitar, and Ronald J. McGovey on bass. McGovey would lead the band on December 10, 1982 due to him not feeling like a respected member of the band. He would be replaced by bassist Cliff Burton. Metallica had been going strong for quite some time now, and on April 11, 1983 they drove to New York to record their first album. It was at around this time that current guitarist Dave Mustaine was fired for abusing drugs, alcoholism, being too aggressive, and clashing with the rest of the members on many things. He would be replaced by Kirk Hammett for the album. On July 25, 1983, Metallica would release their first album titled Kill 'Em All, though it was originally going to be titled Metal Up Your A-Word. When it was released, it was met with a mixed but mostly positive reception. The album was able to gain Metallica enough recognition to build a small but dedicated fanbase. However, the album cover was deemed too violent by many people, forcing Metallica to change it to a basic album cover of their logo with the band members' names. The song Anesthesia Pulling Teeth showcased the band's ability to create great instrumental tracks, and songs like The Four Horsemen and Seek and Destroy showed the band's ability to write good songs in general. After the release of Kill 'Em All, Metallica went on tour to support the release of the album. They were able to secure opening slots for bands such as Venom, Ozzy Osbourne, and Twisted Sister, leading to their fan base continuing to grow. While on this tour, the band continued writing songs, some of which would later appear on their next album. After touring, they would travel to Copenhagen, Denmark to start recording their next album. Almost exactly a year after the release of Kill 'Em All on July 27, 1984, Metallica would release their second album, Ride the Lightning. When it was released, it was immediately met with lots of critical acclaim, praising the album for its complexity, darker themes, and ability to combine aggressive thrash metal with more melodic elements. Just like the previous album, they included an instrumental track called Call Cthulhu. The original artwork was going to be an electric chair with a hand reaching out and grabbing lightning bolts, but due to fear that it would cause controversy for the band, they switched it to the iconic electric chair in front of a storm. Almost every song on the album was received extremely positively, like the title track, Ride Lightning, for its speed and intensity, Fade to Black for its emotional and melancholic lyrics, and For Whom the Bell Tolls for its heavy bass line. This album helped further grow Metallica's fanbase, allowing them to go on their first ever European tour the same year. During concerts in both the US and Europe, they shared stages with bands such as Wasp, or WASP, Armored Saint, and Venom. Metallica would travel to Copenhagen, Denmark again to record their third album. On March 3, 1986, Master of Puppetry would be released to the public, becoming a commercial success and receiving even more critical acclaim than the previous album. The album was hailed as one of the most groundbreaking and influential albums of the time. Some of the reasons it was praised was for its themes of addiction, war, and control, along with the overall sound of the album being impeccable. It was so popular, in fact, that it would reach platinum in several countries. To this day, the album is considered one of the most influential albums in the entirety of heavy metal because of its dark lyrical themes and technical intricacy. Just like the previous album, almost every song in the album was praised, like Battery for its intensity and the title track Master of Puppets for its amazing guitar, epic scope, and intricate composition. Once again, they included an instrumental song in the album, this one being titled Orion. They would embark on their fourth tour, the Damage Incorporated Tour, in support of the album that spring. Tragedy would strike later that year, however, as on September 27th, Cliff Burton would die in a tour bus accident. Jason Newsted would go on to replace him as Metallica's bassist for the recording of their next album, And Justice for All. It would release on August 25th, 1988, to a mixed reception that leaned more positive. It was praised by critics for its more social and political themes along with its complexity, ambition, and technicality. It was criticized for the lack of bass prominence, however. That didn't matter that much though, since the album would go on to peak at number 6 on the Billboard 200 in the US and peak around number 10 on album charts in other countries as well. It also went platinum. The album would go on to get Metallica nominated for a Grammy for the Best Hard Rock and Metal Performance, Vocal or Instrumental, which they did not win. The following year, however, they would be nominated for Best Metal Performance for their song One, which would win their first Grammy. The album is known for its lengthy and epic tracks, One and just like One and Blackened. Just like the previous 3 albums, it featured an instrumental track titled To Live Is To Die. After the release of the album, they would embark on the Damaged Justice Tour. The band started work on their new album in October of 1990 with new producer Bob Rock. Bob Rock wanted to make the album more commercially viable than Metallica's previous albums, so he had the band use cleaner guitar tones, focus more on the melody, enhanced vocal production, and helped them make it more radio friendly. He also made the bass a lot more present, and more present than it had ever been in Metallica. He also became very close friends with the band, being able to understand what they wanted to do with the band while also challenging them to do new stuff too. After several months of recording the album, Metallica would release Enter Sandman as a single on July 29, 1991. It was a massive success, peaking highly on charts and being played on radios and MTV airways. They would go on to release their self-titled album on August 12, 1991, where it became a massive commercial success. It was topping charts in many different countries, including the Billboard 200 in the US. It even achieved Diamond certification in the US. It was because of this success that Metallica would go mainstream. The album cover has also become one of the most recognizable in metal, with it being entirely black except for a barely visible snake and Metallica logo in the corners. In fact, it was because of the album cover that this album is commonly referred to as the Black Album. Many of their hardcore fans were divided about how to feel about the album, however. Many disliked that they didn't stick to their thrash roots, while others praised it for making metal more mainstream than it had ever been. Many of the songs in the album would go on to be massive hits that were extensively played on radios, like Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Nothing Else Matters, and The Unforgiven. Metallica would go on to perform Enter Sandman at the Grammys in 1992, but a stagehand accidentally unplugged Hammett's guitar. Metallica continued playing their song even though Hammett's guitar was unplugged for most of it. They went on to win the Grammy for Best Metal Performance for Enter Sandman that year. They toured in support of the album for several years, including multiple different tours, such as the Nowhere Else to Roam tour and Crap Hits the Sheds tour. To this day, it is still one of the highest selling albums and most influential metal albums of all time. Metallica and director Wayne Isham, I hope I pronounced that right, worked together on a documentary-style concert film that was titled Metallica, A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. The film was released on November 17, 1992. They would also go on to release a live album titled Live Crap, Binge and Purge. They released it on November 23, 1993. It included live showings of their songs from the concerts during their Wherever We May Roam tour in Mexico City and Seattle. The next 2 albums Metallica released are Load in 1995 and Reload in 1997. Both released to a mixed reception despite being commercial successes. They went even further from their thrash metal roots than they had with the Black Album, which many of their fans didn't like. Some critics praised them for exploring new musical territories and diversity, while others criticized them for losing the aggression and intensity that made them famous, along with criticizing the lack of consistency. Even with a very mixed receptions, the albums did well on charts and were played significantly on radio stations. They would go on the Poor Touring Me tour in 1996 through 1997 and the Reload tour in 1997 through 1998 to promote both of the albums. Some songs from the albums that were received well and got lots of radio time were Until It Sleeps, Fuel, and The Memory Remains. Despite being initially received poorly, both albums have been appreciated in recent times. Metallica would start work on a different kind of album after the release of those 2, and on November 24th, 1998, they would release their cover album, Garage Incorporated. Unlike their previous 2 albums, Garage Inc. was received very positively. They covered songs from many different artists, like Black Sabbath, Queen, The Misfits, Thin Lizzy, etc. They also collaborated with many artists for the album, like Ozzy Osbourne and Marianne Faithfull. It would peak at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and go platinum in the US. It was praised for being able to cover classic songs with their own style while still playing homage to the originals. It was also praised for its diversity. One of their most famous songs from it is Whiskey in a Jar, which to this day is still one of their most popular songs of all time. They would go on multiple tours to promote the album, such as Garage Incorporated Promo Tour and Garage Remains the Same Tour. In 2000, Metallica sued the file-sharing service Napster for copyright infringement, citing that they had been sharing Metallica's music without permission. This case helped bring awareness to online privacy. The following year, Newsted would propose that the band take a year-long hiatus so that he could focus on his side project, Echo Brain. The rest of the band rejected his proposal, leading him to leave the band. Metallica started production for the next album in 2002, with Bob Rock playing bass since Newsted left. The album was released on June 5, 2003 under the name Saint Anger. This would be the most polarizing of all Metallica studio albums, with some people embracing the raw energy and exploration of new territories, but most people did not like this album at all. Let's get the big complaint out of the way, the snare drum. Not many people liked the snare on the album, and it's understandable why they didn't. It sounded very out of place. There wasn't any variation in the sound. It was very unpolished. It was too different from Metallica's previous snare sound. It was too muddy, it lacked clarity, etc. Another reason it was so disliked was because it differed even more from Metallica's classic sound than Load or Reload. People also disliked the lack of guitar solos, memorable hooks, and dynamic songwriting. Unlike some of the other albums people disliked, though, Saint Anger is still considered by most to be one of their worst albums. After the release of the album, Metallica finally found a replacement for Newsted as bass in Robert Trujillo. I know I pronounced that wrong. They also embarked on tours to support the album, such as the Madly in Anger with the World Tour. During the time after the release of the album, the band would try other things, such as James Hetfield forming a band called Papa Wheelie. After 5 years, though, the band would get back together and start work on another album. In September 12, 2008, Metallica would release its album Death Magnetic. When it was released, it was received very well, which is something the previous 3 studio albums were not able to do. It was praised for returning to their thrash roots, along with combining the best parts of new and old Metallica. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, and being nominated for the Grammy Award for Best Rock Album in 2009, though it did not win. Many songs from this album have become favorites among fans, such as Cyanide and All Nightmare Long. They would embark on the World Magnetic Tour in support of the album, which spanned multiple years and through multiple continents. On June 16, 2010, history was made when all 4 bands of the Big Four of thrash metal played their first concert together. On Halloween of 2011, Metallica released a collaboration album with Lou Reed titled Lulu. Upon its release, Lulu received massive amounts of backlash and hate from the fans. Reasons it was hated are that it went away from Metallica's thrash roots again, caught fans off guard after an album that did return to their roots, Lou Reed's vocals, controversial lyrical themes, disturbing subject matter, the album making fans feel uncomfortable, the mixing of experimental rock and metal not working for people, lack of catchy hooks and catchy melodies throughout the song, lengthy songs that were not that catchy, too challenging for many people to connect with, lack of coherence and flow, abrupt transitions, disjointing listening experience, etc. It's pretty easy to see that it was a very hated album, though it still has its dedicated fans who appreciate it. On October 4th, 2013, Metallica released a 3D concert film titled Metallica Through the Never. They also held their own music festival in 2012 and 2013, the Orion Music Plus More Festival, where they played unique set lists including the entirety of the Ride the Lightning album. Then on November 18th, 2016, which is exactly 19 years after the release of Reload, Metallica would release their 10th studio album titled Hardwired to Self-Destruct. The album was received very positively, peaking at number 1 in several countries including the US and UK. It was praised for once again returning to their thrash metal roots. It was also lauded for its energy, songwriting, heavy riffs, and aggressive sound. To promote the album, they went on the World Wired Tour around the world. Some songs that are favorites among many fans are Hardwired and Atlas Rise. On April 24th, 2023, Metallica released their final album as of now, 72 Seasons. It was met with mostly positive reviews, with one of the only real criticisms being that the album was a bit too long at 77 minutes long. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and did well on album charts in other countries. Following the release of the album, Metallica would embark on the M72 World Tour, which is still currently going on, with Metallica's current lineup of James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Robert Trujillo. As of now, that is Metallica's entire history. Now for my personal opinion. I love Metallica, as it is the first metal band that I ever really liked, the first metal song I ever liked being One. If I were to put it on the tier list of all of the other metal bands, I would rank it in S tier with Black Sabbath. That's the video, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to smash that like button, and if you'd like to see more kind of this content, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to stay up to date on all our uploads. That's all for today, so see you next time.